So 2024 was no stranger to health trends. So let's see what the top 5 are for 2025. In this podcast, we're going to discuss what those trends are and if we are going to incorporate them into our lives. At the end of the video, we will rank them from 1 to 5. Let us know what you think. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Chemist Couple Podcast with Jess and Lee. So in this podcast, we're going to be discussing, like we've just said, the top 5 health trends for 2025. These health trends that we've actually got were from Boots the Chemist, which they did an article this month. So if you want to have a read of that, we will link it down below. So let's start off with trend number 1, gut health and microbiome balance.
I'm going to let you start because this is your favourite area of all health and science.
I think it's no surprise that this one's in there. It's been gaining a lot of traction over the last couple of years thanks to scientists like Professor Tim Spector, Dr. Sarah Berry, and also the Zoe podcast, which is definitely a podcast that we listen to. I think this one is probably here to stay for quite a long time. Over recent years, we've learnt more and more about the gut microbiome and its role that it plays in our health, not only our physical health, but also our mental health. So I think, this is definitely one that we discuss a lot on the podcast and definitely one that is important to me personally. And I think, you yourself.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So what do we know about the gut microbiome then? So we know, like I said, it's involved in a lot of different mechanisms to do with health. So having a diverse gut microbiome is positive for better health outcomes. And then the opposite of that, so having dysbiosis, so a less diverse gut microbiome, is actually being related to chronic conditions, so metabolic syndrome, obesity, also autoimmune diseases, and then depression. So like I say, it's involved in both the physical and mental health. And the reason for that is because the microbes in our gut make precursors to neurotransmitters within the brain, such as serotonin and dopamine. It's also involved in the inflammatory process. So we know that certain bacteria and fungi and viruses within the gut break down fibre, which is what they feed off, which is what we'll get onto in a minute. And they produce what we call short-chain fatty acids. These short-chain fatty acids react in a way that then they're involved in the inflammatory process. So they sort of keep the balance between anti-inflammatory and pro-inflammatory. And we know that a lot of chronic health diseases have this underlying inflammation. So obviously dysbiosis of the gut microbiome sort of favours the pro-inflammatory rather than the anti-inflammatory. But yeah, do you have any thoughts or anything on the gut microbiome?
The microbiome is an evolving science.
Yep.
And one thing we do know is that we don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that we've got to admit.
Definitely.
And the more that comes out, like you've just said, a lot of chronic conditions, inflammatory responses, all are coinciding with maybe a less diverse gut microbiome. A lot of people listening, and even me, may be asking, how do we increase our gut diversity and what should we aim for? So in terms of national guidelines, we advise 30 grams of fibre daily. Mm-hmm. The studies are suggesting that on average, we're getting 15 to 20 grams as an adult in the UK, so greatly underutilised in this area of science. But how should we go about it?
So there's a lot of different ways how we should go about it. And actually, this time last year, we went about trying to enhance our gut health, didn't we? So we really focused on that. And the whole of 2024 was really predominantly in our diet, focused on increasing plants and improving the health of our gut. So the first one, I would say, and it's probably the one that you've heard a lot bandied about, is the avoiding ultra-processed foods. So ultra-processed foods are industrially produced foods. So how to determine if you think it's an ultra-processed food, usually you'll look on the back of a label, and if it's got an ingredient in it that you don't know what it is, or one or more ingredients, then it usually is, ultra-processed. These products are almost void completely of fibre. So like we've just mentioned before, the gut bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa in our gut feed on fibre. That's what they live upon. And so if these foods don't have enough fibre in them, then it doesn't allow these microbes to flourish. So avoiding them. They also contain chemicals which we did actually think they were once inert, and so they didn't have any effect within like the human body. So whether it was on our cells
So do you mean like artificial sweeteners?
Yes, sorry. So like gums, artificial sweeteners, all things like that. However, there are studies now that are coming about, which I will link the studies below, to suggest that they do have an impact on the gut microbiome. And so they people who tend to have a diet that is high in ultra-processed food, they do have a different microbiome to people who live on whole foods.
Yeah, but that's no surprise, because you said in a few podcasts ago that bacteria are quite advanced in comparison to humans. They have been around for a lot longer than us. So if we're giving it nutrients that it necessarily doesn't feed on, it will adapt in a way. And that's what has probably happened. They were once in it, potentially or theoretically, and now they are acting upon something that they wouldn't have done so in the past. Yeah,
because I actually read something where it was talking about our gut microbiome. Well, actually our microbiome in general, because I think we do go on about our gut microbiome a lot, but we do have microbes that live in our skin as well, and they, we need to be sort of allowing them to flourish too. So, it is the microbiome as a whole weighs the same amount as our brain. So I think there's 4 times as many bacteria within us than human cells, so bacterial cells. So we are more bacteria than we are human. And so that just shows how much we rely on these bacteria and other microbes that we don't realise. And like you say, it's such a developing science that I think at this moment in time, we know a little bit about the bacteria, but we know almost nothing about the viruses and the fungus that live inside us. So we've got a long way to go and a lot to learn.
We have. And I think one of the hardest things for people who are listening are that the gut, as the intestinal tract, is classed as external to the body. So all this bacteria is essentially outside your body, even though it's got to go through your mouth. Mm-hmm. And this idea that it's got such a close relationship with how you act physiologically. Yeah. It's quite hard to get your head around.
It is. So yeah. Ultra-processed foods at the moment within the UK and the US, the diet consists of about 60% of ultra-processed foods.
In comparison to places like France, where I believe it's 12%, Italy 14%, and they follow the classic Mediterranean diet anyway.
It actually said in the UK, about 70% of children have a 70% ultra-processed food diet, and it tends to be higher in poorer
it is.
communities, which is sad.
We've made this comment before, and we are aware that a lot of people may not be able to obtain whole food, organic sources of food, and they have to opt for ultra-processed food, and it is needs must at that point.
Yeah.
But if you have the capability, or you think something's healthy because it may be promoting extra protein, high in fibre, normally, as a rule of thumb, things that are promoting certain nutrients tend to not be that good for you because it is manufactured in a certain way that it's ultra processed.
I'll be honest, I think at this moment in time, and we did see this in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, that as long as we're talking about it and we're bringing the attention to, the powers that be, that, I think things are changing. Like I went to the supermarket yesterday and I was looking for actually some like savoury snacks for my brother, actually, because we went on a walk this morning. Yeah. And I just like the actual amount of different like healthier options of foods, it is increasing. So I ended up buying some crisps, which were like made from some kind of flour, but they actually had added some like healthy gut microbes within the food, so it was a better option than going for the traditional crisps.
Well, it was claimed to. It was claimed how to, it's regulated again.
But I think if as long as we keep up the momentum of speaking about ultra processed foods, speaking about the impact that it has within our health, then I think more and more people will, maybe not buy it, and so then the demand is not there. That's what I hope in my mind anyway that happens.
But yeah, from small movements.
I know. So that's the first one, avoid ultra processed foods. The second one that we suggest is to eat more plants. So the number that we suggest is 30 different plant species a week. So people may just think of plants as fruits or vegetables. However, it can be things like grains, legumes, so peas, beans. It can be nuts and seeds, and then also spices.
Spices, that's a big one. A lot of people forget.
Yeah. So actually, when you think about it in that sense, it is fairly easy to get, 30 plants in a week. Especially if if your spice cupboard is filled with maybe 5 spices that you'd use, that's 5 already that you can have over the week. And then, just trying different fruits and vegetables, you're probably going to get there. Now, I didn't realise that the number 30 was scientifically backed. So I just thought that it was a number that was just sort of put out there.
An arbitrary unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, there are studies that sort of helped us to get to this number. So it was called the American Gut Project, and it was I think Tim Spector was involved in it as well. So he did a UK arm of it, and basically association between the amount of plants you eat meant a better diverse gut microbiome. So anything below 10 was considered like it wasn't beneficial. Above 10 it was more beneficial, and then above 30 was about the sweet spot that you saw the most diverse gut microbiomes.
Was there an upper limit, or did it just stop at 30?
So I've actually put the study within there. I didn't look into it too much. I just had a quick glance over the study. So I will have a look and maybe put it in the comments if I do find out. But at this moment in time, I think potentially 30 is a nice round number. And like I say, the studies suggested that above 30 was where we sort of wanted to be.
And if you aren't eating any plants, I wouldn't jump straight to 30. You would up titrate it gradually, because otherwise you will be sitting on the toilet quite a lot.
Yeah. I think as well, if you are going to sort of incorporate more plants, make sure you're keeping up your fluids, because, having a lot of fibre in your diet, you want to make sure that
true. And also a lot of people undereat. So when they actually include a spice or a plant within a meal, they don't have enough in a portion because they feel as though it's comparable to a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
So if you have spinach, for example, you can have a lot more spinach in volume as you could a packet of rice.
Yeah.
Because of the nutrient density, etc.
Yeah.
So that's where I think people fall short, is that they feel a lot hungrier, when ironically, if you had greater volumes because you were allowed to in terms of energy content, etc., it will offset.
Yeah. No, that is true. Because also, like, plants have prebiotics, which we did discuss last time. So prebiotics are the fibres, your carbohydrates that the gut microbes feed on. They've also got polyphenols in, which are anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. They're often what gives a plant its colour.
Yeah.
So, if you've got a pepper, for instance, that's red, it'll usually be a polyphenol that's produced that red colour. So I think eat more plants, and 30 is about the sweet spot that we would aim for.
Okay, next one I want to touch upon is fermented foods.
Yeah.
And we've got a funny story about this, because last year when we started including more plants, I went through colitis and then developed lactose deficiency, didn't I?
Yeah.
Or lactase deficiency, lactose intolerance. But at that time, I was really increasing the amount of kefir that I was having, which is dairy.
Yeah.
So ironically, I was giving myself what I thought was good at the time, and then having more colitis episodes because of this vicious cycle.
It wasn't a good time.
Stopped, but anyone who can have dairy, kefir is really good. Fermented dairy is really good for you.
Yeah.
And as a rule of thumb, if you are to have dairy, because studies are still showing it's still good for you, is you need to have something that is fermentable.
Yeah.
Such as cheese, something that goes off. If you have the slices of cheese where it doesn't go off for 4 years,
plastic cheese, they call it.
That's not good for you. But the ones that will go off, smell, etc., they're the types of foods that you should be having. Now, what we normally have day to day is kimchi. We have sauerkraut.
Yeah.
We have miso. We have, what else do we have? You do all the
kombucha.
Kombucha.
Yeah, we like kombucha, so that's a fermented tea. The only thing I would say is that you just be careful when you're buying these products, because sometimes they will add additives in them, which then make them not as healthy as what they can be, but you will find ones that are completely natural. So, sometimes like the kombuchas, for instance, will have like sweeteners added into them, but just try and go for like an organic one. I think M&S do one that is, because we have that quite a lot, so if you're in the UK, they have their own one, and I'm pretty sure that one is okay, but I'd just check the label next time. But yeah, that's just something to be aware of. But, these products are fermented, so they have probiotics in them, which are actual live, microcultures, and they add to the diversity of the gut, from which we know from studies. People who actually eat fermented foods have a more diverse gut microbiome. So that's where all of this, the evidence for increasing the diversity, comes from. There are other things that you can do, but I think, for those three things, I think they're probably the most important or the easiest things to try and incorporate.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are against trying fermented foods. My family were at one point, and now ironically they've went out today and bought kimchi. They had kimchi on holiday. I think they've had kombucha and they buy that in. So it's ironic how they like it now. But kimchi, if anyone's never had it, it's got like a natural spice to it anyway.
Yeah, so I love it.
It is really nice, but just trying a few things and not just having them in isolation, have them with the ideal dishes should be for. So kimchi normally goes with a lot of Asian dishes mainly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't just have it on beans on toast, for example. It just wouldn't go.
We probably would, but yeah.
I mean, we've got to that stage.
Yeah.
But
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But they're 3 good points.
Yeah.
Increase the amount of plants, try and aim for 30. We are trying to increase the amount of fermented foods, and if you can, remove ultra-processed foods to the greatest extent.
Yeah.
We understand that the Western side of the world have ultra-processed foods and everything, and we haven't fully eradicated them. We do have oat milk.
Of course.
That is the main thing we have that's ultra-processed, I think.
That's what I was going to say, is that, it's not about just anything in health. It's obviously, if you can avoid it, then that's the most beneficial thing. But even just reducing the amount, it's going to give you some benefit. So that's all it's about, isn't it? It's just maybe increasing the amount of ones, even if you don't have 30, increase the amount of what you were having. So it's all to put things into perspective, isn't it?
And the oat milk for us of a morning, we like an oat milk coffee of a morning.
Yeah.
Now that has better effects on my mental aspect, as it probably would have detrimented the gut aspect. So again, you've got to weigh that up.
Yeah. That leads us nicely onto number 2 health trend, mental wellness and mindfulness. So we're just interrupting this video just to say thank you to everyone who has already liked and subscribed to this channel. If you haven't, then please do, because it really helps us. And as always, this is informational purposes only and shouldn't be used in substitute for seeking medical advice.
Okay. I'll be honest, this is something I'm really poor at, and I think a lot of men will be in a similar position.
Yeah, I think,
we say it's a woman's thing. We sort of leave it. You just deal with it. I don't tell anyone really any problems that I've got. Never have done. I still probably will never.
Yeah, which is obviously something that over the last 10 years, I would say, is really, there's been a big drive for, because obviously suicide in men is I think it's the number 1 biggest killer, but below the age of 50.
I couldn't quote it, but it has increased.
Yeah,
but I think that comes from a lot of, obviously the area we come from, Liverpool, the men before me are normally manly men. And obviously my dad's a builder, my granddad was in demolition. So they were all tough.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really convey any emotions. And I think that's just been passed down to me, where I keep everything sealed off. And from a medical point of view, it's unhealthy. It's hard for me to change it though, if I'm being honest. But this is why we've ways to improve your mental health, mindfulness, etc. One of them being journaling.
Yeah.
Now, we have started doing that this year, and I have stuck to it every day. And the studies, again, it's a subjective area. Do you feel better after doing a certain activity is subjective, so it's hard to measure. But for me, I've improved a lot of things from it. Sleep has improved. And if you are wondering whether to try it, it's only 5 minutes of your day, so it's not really a big time expenditure. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if it does, it's only a short allocation of your time to greater benefit.
Yeah. So I think for me, journaling, it allows me to have a thought in my head, write it down, and then sort of the thought's gone then. So you've written it, it's on paper, and so you can come back and reflect on it, but it just means that you're getting things out of your head and down and writing it on a piece of paper. So I think that's sort of the idea behind it. But yeah, it's been beneficial for us, and we've kept it up, since the beginning of January. Hopefully we do keep it up. And
well, we do keep each other accountable to it.
Yeah.
So I'll make the coffee of a morning, I'll bring them up, and we'll do that for the first thing before we do anything. And I think it's nice just seeing what you've got in a day. And I sort of looked at journaling a bit different to other people, because when you've got a normal 9-to-5 job, which we have, when you're writing certain stuff down in a journal, it'll say, what are your goals today? What do you want to do in a 50-10 method? Whatever it is that you've got coming up. And if you've got a 9-to-5, you start work then, you end work then.
Yeah.
And that's your greatest productivity is involved in work.
Yeah.
So it's quite hard. I think that's the hardest aspect, is working around the 9-to-5.
Yeah. I think also the journal that we have is very specific to sort of trying to organise our day. That's what we got. Whereas you can get different ones. So there could be ones where it could be just purely to do with self-love or mindfulness. So I did have one where it was like a quote a day, and it was basically just making you feel more positive. Or you can get ones where you have goals. So there's all different types of journals that you can get. So the one that we've got is really specific at this moment in time. Obviously we're trying to grow the podcast, so everything's quite regimented in our life, and so that's why we chose that one, to sort of lay out our day so that we can see what it looked like, and then also reflect on how the day's gone, stuff like that. So yeah, there's all different ones. But
it still has a quote of the day, and it does encourage you to say it out loud 5 times. I mean,
in the
I'm
mirror.
not gonna
apparently.
lie. Oh, I don't do that.
Yeah, no, I don't.
If I do say it out loud, it's whispering so you don't hear me in another room because I'm not at that stage of comfort yet. Besides journaling, another thing I've looked into, and we have mentioned it before, is interacting with nature.
Yeah.
So if you ever look on big branded laptops, computers, they'll have a nature specific background. And the study I looked into actually was people benefit from having greater than 2 hours a week in nature. And that doesn't have to be 30 minutes each day, whatever it works out to that total. It could be in one sitting.
Right, okay.
And a lot of people had, again, subjective, but greater productivity, greater feeling of fulfillment, purpose from just being 2 hours a week. That was.
Yeah, I mean, we went for a walk today, like I mentioned before, and I just felt so positive all day just from being outside. It was freezing. I might insert some clips of like where we went just on this video if you're watching it, because it was stunning. It was at the coast, wasn't it, of like at the edge of Lake Liverpool, and it was lovely. We actually went with a group of people, so that was also a thing on my list that I wanted to talk about, was connection and seeing friends, seeing family. In this day and age, we don't tend to do that as much anymore. Everything's online. We work remotely, so apart from each other, I was saying before, I can go a week without seeing anybody else sometimes, or interacting with anybody else apart from speaking to patients. But, just being able to unwind and just speak to people, we don't really get that. So, that's a very important thing. We are very social animals, humans, and so we do need that real deep connection with people. Something that I want to work on this year, and that's why we set up this little walking club just with like anybody who wants to join us. Just to find, to discover, more about people.
It is. And you said as well, if you are to interact with people doing an activity, you're more likely to feel greater benefit from that.
Yeah.
And I think you wanted to also start it because a lot of people that in a close circle maybe aren't exercising as much as they should.
I think they want to, and
it's finding that balance of how do you initiate it. So you just started it, and a lot of people turned up today. Yeah. So if you are listening, you are close, you can obviously join the next one.
We put it on our Instagram once every month. So if anyone's within like the north, I mean, even anywhere in the UK and you want to travel, we will
get flights in.
Yeah, we'll be doing it. But so then number 3 on my list was meditation and yoga for mental wellness.
Okay.
Which again, I didn't look into the studies of it, but I'm pretty sure that there'll be tons of them out there.
Again, it's subjective.
Yeah, but I do find a benefit from doing yoga. I've done yoga for about a year now. So what initially started out as something that I was doing because of a back injury turned into actually something that I now really enjoy doing, and it relaxes me. So I'll sometimes do just a 15-minute morning yoga flow, and it just sets me up for the day. Again, I have spoken about this on podcasts before, but a lot of time in yoga, they do affirmations. So while you're doing your yoga flow, especially if you're doing it with a teacher, they will do positive affirmations. And so it's just a positive thing. Obviously, it's all about breath work as well. And obviously meditation. I do find that hard, to be honest. I think you have to get into a space in your head where you're not thinking about anything. And I do find it difficult to not think about anything.
From what I've read about meditation, it's not something I've ever done, but a lot of people say you can't be too harsh if your brain and mind takes you to other places.
Right.
That will come over time. Yeah. But the idea is just trying to silence whatever it is you're doing at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it will come. But again, yoga I do, I'd say probably 1 to 2 times a month. Something I need to do more of for flexibility, balance. I think it's beneficial in that way. You get the calming aspect of it.
Yeah.
Meditation, I don't do it at the moment. I see the benefits of it.
Yeah. Then I had sound healing. Again, I haven't looked into that, but I think it's it's all about vibrations and trying to like calm your mind and things like that. I would like to try it. I know that there is a class actually local to us. My friend goes, every other week or something. I think it's like an hour. And you just lie there, and they do like a sound bath. So again, something that I'm willing to try. But then I think one that we probably should touch on is sleep, because that has a huge impact on mental health from the studies that I've looked at. Do you think the same?
Sleep's something that we don't prioritise enough.
Yeah.
Something I've never really put as the the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
I normally let that suffer the most, if I'm being honest. I'll do everything else in a day, and then sleep is a last resort because it's the last thing of your day, and it shouldn't be. It should be one of the most important things, because without it, you don't recover. There's a lot of things linked to it.
Yeah. I think I will link again the study down below, but I just looked at it. Was a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. So there was actually a lot of different studies that were involved in this study. And it was basically just showing that poor sleep was linked to poor mental health outcomes. So that was anxiety, depression, psychosis. I think there was a few other things as well that was sort of the end point. Now, the argument, or that they were saying in the study, was that, was it poor sleep that was leading to poor mental health, or was it poor mental health that was leading to poor sleep? So it's a bit, again, one of those things in health and science that it is
correlation and causation. Yeah,
it's very difficult to completely ever like solidify what the actual cause is, but there is a correlation between.
Of course there is. I mean, it used to be a form of trauma, I think, in Japan.
Yeah.
If you're keeping people up as long as they can and kill them that way, but it is something that has improved, at least this year, through the use of journaling and no screen time after a certain time.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to go on to?
Ways to improve it, yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, no screen time after 10:30 for me of an evening. I've started reading a bit, because other than medical studies or in work, I don't tend to read any books.
Yeah. Even though now you're not reading a medical book.
I'm still, I only read stuff that's going to benefit me, really. I don't have
I'm the same. I like non-fiction books rather than...
Yeah, but I do feel as though you get to a point when you're reading where certain words become too complicated, or this concept is too hard, and it just makes you tired.
Yeah.
And then you go to bed, and then I don't wake up in the middle of the night. It's also good because it must mean I don't have prostate problems or bladder problems, but I sleep all the way through. I'm more refreshed when I wake up, and it's something I would advise other people to do. But even on your phone, you can go to settings and remove the blue light filter.
Yeah. We do
the
that.
Blue light filter. Yeah. We do that, so it does look weird of an evening. Once it gets to 8 o'clock, I think it goes like an amber colour on your iPhone. But there are ways to increase it.
Yeah, keeping the room like an ambient temperature as well, so it's supposed to be cooler. I actually tried to find the perfect temperature for a room. I didn't end up finding it, but it's supposed. Is it like about 17 degrees potentially? But anyway, keeping it cooler is better. A good diet and regular exercise. You probably know that after you've done a really hard exercise, like a leg day, you wake up and you're exhausted because, it really
no
does
matter how many times I do it.
Yeah. And then me personally, as I've got older, I have struggled with my sleep, whether it's because you have more responsibilities when you get older. I don't know whether it's hormone changes. It could be a lot of different things. But I use, just on Spotify, it's called Get Sleepy. And it's just it's just sort of a guy who basically reads your bedtime stories, but he's got a really calming voice. So I will listen to that sometimes when I go to bed. Probably like it annoys you a little bit, but
it doesn't bother me too much.
Put it on very low.
One as well, isn't it? Slow,
yes.
Which Richard has.
Yeah, so Slow, which is an app, isn't it? Which you can download.
Instrumentals.
Yeah.
All aimed to increasing your sleep.
Yeah, so it could be like the sound of rain, or, the sound of the wind.
It's ironic how rain is a common thing when we hear it enough every day in England.
I know.
And it's the most stressful thing ever when you wake up and it's raining.
I know. So yeah, that's probably sort of a very consolidated overview of what we believe to be mental health and wellness. Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
So then number 3, the third health trend of 2025 is sustainable self-care. So this is like quite a broad topic, I think, in terms of like that could mean a lot of different things. But go on.
For me, I just take that as buying products which are sustainable in terms of net carbon being zero and better on recycling.
Yeah, like less use of plastics.
I think it's more environmental as opposed to the benefits to you as a person. Whether you benefit from keeping the environment clean and improving your sustainability within the future, that's a different thing. But I think this is mainly towards, if you are going to consume products, make sure that it is renewable to an extent.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's a very important topic. We need to think about the globe, and really for future generations especially. And we can't just, obviously you see the amount of plastics and things that go into the sea that they're just destroying the oceans. So, definitely a really important topic and something that I think we probably don't think about this too much, and we definitely should. It's something that I think probably going forward within 2025 is probably going to be a goal of mine to sort of reduce our carbon footprint as a household. Because like we know, even though it's a very small person and it's a very small part of the puzzle, if everybody did that, then it makes everything better, doesn't it?
Yeah. In terms of people buying sustainable products or self-care in that way, it does increase the cost.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of them things I am aware of people not being able to purchase certain products.
Yeah.
I mean, deodorants, shampoos will be 1.5 to 2 times more expensive.
Yeah. So to be honest, I have like sort of some personal experience with this. So my mum is a specialist dermatology pharmacist, but she also has her own little business, doesn't she, called Dermatanical, where she makes natural skincare.
Yeah.
And she's very into sort of making it net zero. So she gets refillable, like little pop
from rice husk.
Yeah. So basically it's the remnants of what they don't use from rice, and then they basically put it into a compostable product. It feels like plastic.
No, it's really nice, but the problem was it was very expensive for her to keep up with that, and then to even sell it at the price she wanted to in terms of making it affordable for everyone else. I think she was running at a loss if she was to do that.
Which was sad, but
so it's hard.
It is hard. And then I think the last thing I just wanted to maybe touch upon with this was just, obviously at the moment, there's a lot in the news about microplastics. So, if these products are being produced in plastic containers, which a lot of them were, before it's now going to more sustainable products, we know that it's incorporated into our ecosystem. I think there's studies now that are suggesting that microplastics are incorporated into every organ within our body, and that they could produce inflammatory like responses within our body. And I think that was actually linked to potentially being a cause of all of these younger people potentially getting cancers. Now, I haven't looked at those studies, and it was just a thing that I did see, but I think we'll probably hear more and more about these microplastics.
Still a differential until it's removed.
Exactly. And so so good for the environment, but also for our health. I think it's good that we are going more sustainable and thinking about other ways to package things rather than the use of plastics.
Yeah, I agree.
So then number 4 is personalised nutrition.
So we done a podcast last week going on about vitamins.
Yeah.
Whether you take them or not, again, is up to you. But if you are, it makes more sense to personalise them to yourself. So we touched upon Bionic.
Yeah.
Zoe, you were probably going to bring them up anyway. So they offer continuous glucose monitoring. And then when you eat certain foods, it measures insulin spikes and how that sort of adapts to you. Because I read something the other day, and I've discussed it with you in terms of how we look at medicine and studies, because everyone's individual. Me and you, completely different. Me and my brother, completely different genetically. We grab all these people in a study who are all individually different, and then we review one aspect, and then we culminate that to a result, and then we come up with a resolution which is meant to be homogenized, so it deals with everyone.
Yeah.
And then we take that sort of compiled solution and give it out on an individual basis again. How does that work?
I know, it's
mind-boggling, but that's all we can do in medicine unless we got everyone else with a genome within certain percentage ranges. There was no way you could do it.
Yeah.
So
I think
these are going the right way.
Yeah, because the concept behind personalised nutrition is that everybody reacts differently to different stresses or responses. So if I was to eat a certain food, my blood sugar may spike to a higher level than yours would eating the same type of food and the same amount.
Yeah.
So that's where the continuous blood glucose monitoring comes in. I know that Zoe also monitor fat, like blood fat response as well. I think that's to do with the stool sample that you get. And then they also check your gut microbiome as well. So they don't just do your response to carbohydrates. So they try and then I think you then get a personalised sort of shopping list, if you will, where it'll tell you the foods that you react better to and the foods that you react less favourably to. So my mum actually did it. And then, so potentially apples for her were a good food source. It didn't spike her blood glucose levels. So it means that she responded better to it. It wasn't spiking it. It's going to cause less insulin resistance over a long period of time. Whereas if you had it, it potentially could have spiked yours. And so then it would have been lower down on your shopping list. Yeah. So it is interesting. And I think that it's definitely a way that probably medicine and nutrition is going to be going.
Medicine, definitely.
It's just the expense of it.
Yeah, pharmacogenomics has been a thing for a while. Yeah. And without going too much into medication, there are certain enzymes within the body that work completely different and alter how medication is activated and metabolized.
Yeah.
It is a way we need to go because we are an individualized population. We are not homogenous in any way. The only thing we share is the fact that we have an X and Y or X and X. So,
yeah, I think also I looking quickly at some studies where it was saying that, well, they basically did a personalised nutrition plan, and then they also did the FDA's guidance on what you were supposed to eat. People in the personalised nutrition plan were more likely to stick to their plan, and then there was also better health outcomes. So it was better at treating type 2 diabetes if you were on a personalised nutrition plan. I will again link the studies down below of this podcast, but it's positive that you're getting better outcomes if it's more personalised, which does make sense.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So then the last one, do you want to go into that one, or is there anything else that you would like to
No, I think because we've covered a lot of that in the last episode.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
Personalised, it basically says what it is on the tin, and we are going in that direction.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So then the last one, so the health trend number 5 is digital health tracking. You looked into this a lot more than me.
But I want to know your thoughts before I go into it.
I think my thought is that is sort of what is my personal thought on it.
Yeah.
So I used to have a health tracker, and I think I have discussed this in previous podcasts as well, that I was not consumed by it, but I used to, I'd look at say the ring. So I used to have an Apple Watch, and it's the red ring means that is like your activity ring, and it's based on calories. So, and then the green one is based on minutes that you've exercised, or like there's been like your heart rate's obviously gone up. And I used to be, consumed by it, and I'd be disheartened if I didn't reach my ring, or like I didn't close the ring. So rather than do an exercise for the fun of it, and because I wanted to do it, because I wanted to move my body, because I felt grateful that I can do that, I was it made me do it for the wrong reasons. Now, that's not to say that I don't agree with them. I think that for certain people, great. Like, for instance, this morning, when we went on the walk, my mum's got one, and it keeps her accountable. So like at this moment in time, she's making sure that she's getting 8,000 steps in every single day because she knows what she's done on her watch. Yeah. And so, everybody's individual. But from the point of view of that's just my personal opinion.
No, I agree. I think the negativity for you in that aspect is also, if you didn't complete your ring, could you have then done a workout where you weren't fully involved in it, led to an injury? And then ironically, you can't train for the following week.
Yeah.
But then from your mum's point of view, it's that motivating factor to say, actually, you haven't done anything today, so at least do something.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we've looked into the accuracy of them. They measure heart rate, they measure calorie expenditure, steps through all accelerometers, etc. On average, I believe heart rate is within 10%. So that's not too bad. But then if you're out by 10%, your recovery, which is based upon heart rate variability, etc., could be out. And I said that with a couple of other brands, is that you wake up, again, it's positive and negatives depending on how you look at it. So you could wake up and say your recovery is 98%. Now, you could have had an awful sleep, but you've seen it and went, oh, well, actually, my body's ready to go today. And you could do something that you weren't going to do.
Yeah.
And it could have led to a greater productivity.
Yeah.
But then also,
you've got the opposite of that as well.
You get the opposite, where you could wake up feeling great and it's got a low score and you think, oh, actually, I feel great. And then you've been put off from doing activity because this is what the science is saying. And that's all down to the inaccuracy, I think, which is why I don't personally use one, because it's 10% out, give or take, on heart rate. Calorie expenditure from a few systematic reviews was out by 30%. Steps were out. Again, steps have never been a big factor for me because the 10,000 steps come from the Tokyo Olympics as a marketing campaign. But that's why I don't personally use one, but I would never put anyone off using one if it helps them become accountable.
Yeah.
But there is actually one benefit, and I did say this yesterday. So speaking to my dad, who's had a heart attack, who's had 2 of them.
Yeah.
Maybe a third, I don't know. But he would benefit from an Apple Watch because they have an ECG on it built in. I don't know whether Samsung do. And it's a 1 lead, potentially 3. And they've measured that against a 12 lead ECG, which is what we use in A&E as the gold standard. And it was pretty close in its accuracy. Yeah, really good. And there was some instances where patients have felt off, and then actually the heart monitor's saying that they're having a heart attack, so an NSTEMI or STEMI, depending on what type it was, and it picked it up without them going to a doctor. So they wouldn't have went for medical attention without that. Yeah. And it's picking up irregular heartbeats to a greater extent, which is increasing within the population, maybe due to caffeine stresses, I don't know. So I do think, my opinion on them is, if you've got the money and the means to do so, buy one, use it to facilitate your life. Don't depend on it. Go with what your body's saying, but also don't ignore what's on there. Yeah. And I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. I think, again, you know, there's people who may be doing, I said this the other day, runs.
You did say that, yeah.
So if you've got a watch that's specifically for that and it can track your route, you've got GPS on it, you know, it tells you how fast you're running, you know, so it's obviously very beneficial for people who are training for a marathon or whatever. If you were training for a marathon without anything, it makes it just hard because you don't know how far you're running, or it's basically just based on time, isn't it, really? So yeah, I mean, at this moment in time, you know, I'm not training for anything where I would need one. So I'm pretty happy at this moment where I don't use one, and I don't think about it. But, you know, potentially in the future, I have a better relationship now with exercise. You know, exercise for me is a positive thing rather than it being sort of a hindrance in my day. So I have a different relationship now. I think if I did get one, it might even enhance, you know, my performance. But maybe in the future, that might be something that I would think about.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. Users sort of reason for having it. If you're a general office worker, which we are to an extent, I don't think it's as paramount as if you were using it for a specific sport and activity. Yeah. Now, we went through the 5 key health trends. As we said, this is from Boots. It's not a set in stone national guideline that these must come out. Yeah. But I believe it would be good if we went on to how we rank each one in terms of what do we prioritise out of the 5 individually.
Okay, so I think that we should go, what was our number 1? And then I'll say mine and then you say yours and then we can explain. Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 1 out of all of the health trends is the gut microbiome.
And that's why.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is because it's involved in physical health and mental health. I think if we are looking after our gut microbiome, then that's looking after our body for us. I think it's something that it's quite easy to implement. So, you know, by just doing a few steps within your day, you can improve it. So it's one of those things that, you know, you can see a benefit right from day one from doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's a science that's evolving.
Yeah.
I think we're going to find more and more benefits of looking after this system. And also the things that come with looking after your gut microbiome generally are correlated with good health outcomes anyway. Yeah. Having higher plants within your diet and eating fermented foods. In general, it comes with good lifestyle factors. It doesn't come with ultra-processed foods or binge eating or drinking, etc. So I think that's why that's number 1. You need to function on a cellular level first before you can do anything else, I believe.
Yeah. Cool. So we agree on that one. Okay, so then your number 2.
My number 2 is mindfulness.
That's my number 2 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, I mean, it's branded around mental health. I always say this to you off camera. I think it gets diluted. Yeah. In my opinion, I think it's been used incorrectly by certain people and cohorts, but it is its own system. It does need to be looked after. Yeah. You deal with a lot of stress every day, and it does have a physiological consequence anyway with cortisol and other hormones. Yeah. And it's not healthy to just bottle things up anyway. I'm going to be honest, I don't think that's going to change with me. I think I am going to always be very.
But I think it's about being aware of it though, because I think that if you disregard it as if like it's not a form of health, which I think maybe previous to this you were, where it was like, no, like my physical health is the most important thing, and really that's, you know what I mean?
No, I agree with you. And it's ironic because I treat a lot of patients who have mental health problems, and assess medication and we give them the best regime.
Yeah.
And it was ironic because, again, through deep-rooted habits, I've been brought up in a way, and this is not a negative way, by the way, is you're a man, you need to get on with it. And some people may frown upon that, but I do believe, as sexist as it may sound, that men should, it's hard to say really, but I do, from my personal point of view, I believe that I should take more of it on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to sort of replicate and replace. But I do believe journaling, putting some problems on paper, is going to free up a bit of space in there. And I think putting things into context as well. There's an unbelievable video, and I can't find it. It's a professor in a university, and he has a jar, and he gets some ping pong balls, and he puts them all in, and then fills it to the top, and he asks all the students, "Is this full?" And they go, "Yeah." And then he goes and gets a stone, puts a stone in, and fills the gaps. "Is this full?" "Yes." Again, "No." And goes to sand, puts sand in, and then it goes to water. And then the idea is that the jar is your life and your brain. And if you fill it up with the wrong stuff first, that shouldn't have any consequence on your life. You won't have any other things to fill it with.
Yeah.
So you should start with the main things in life and fit other things around it. And I think that's the key to mindfulness.
That was really good. Yeah, I've seen that video. So then we agree on that one too. So then number 3 was yours.
Number 3, I'm going to say personalised nutrition.
Okay.
Because the reason is I feel as though that's stronger than the other 2 that are remaining. I believe that you should eat tailored to you. We are individualised as people, as I keep saying. And you can't treat yourself as the rest of the herd.
Yeah.
I think you'll get the best out of your health physically and mentally if you do look after yourself in every way possible.
Yeah. So my number 3 was actually sustainable self-care.
Okay.
And the reason for that is just because it's such a global issue. I think now we're looking at the fires in LA and, trying to get things more sustainable, like net zero, is probably something that isn't as high a priority on my list, but probably should be. And so actually doing this podcast has made me realise that I do want to do something towards that. So I think just because it's such a global issue, and that really, if we don't have a planet, then we don't have us. And so it's something that we need to think about. But yeah, obviously. And then my 4th was personalised nutrition.
Okay. So why did you put it 4th?
I think just because at this moment in time, for me personally, it would be a lot of investment that I'd have to put into it money-wise, like financially, and I don't at this moment in time have it. So I think I am trying to do everything that I can within my power to sort of give me an insurance that my personal health will be good enough. But if I did have the money and I could, go and get tests done where I could check my vitamin levels or, check the response to foods, I would definitely do that.
Okay, that's a good point. And mine is sustainable self-care here. And I think it looks quite selfish now that I put the environment after all the other things. But I think personalising nutrition to yourself, for me, is more prioritising than the environment. And it does look selfish. I mean, we do have an electric car.
Yeah, we do.
I didn't get that for the environment. I got it purely because the power of that is not something you're going to get in a combustible car until you spend £200,000.
Yeah.
So that is the actual reason. But I have made some sort of movement towards it.
Yeah.
And then unanimously, we've come up with number 5 as being health trackers.
Yeah. And again, I think that's, just a personal preference. At this moment in time, I don't personally need a health tracker because I'm not training for anything where I would need a Garmin, for instance, or we don't count calories, so I don't need to know how many calories I'm potentially burning. So, yeah, that's the reason for that one. For sure, is yours the same reason?
Very similar.
Yeah.
But I would not disregard it if people are training for something or they want accountability or an assurance if they've got a cardiac condition, because I was actually surprised looking at them studies of how well it's done against a 12-lead ECG, which is the gold standard.
I think definitely. I was
really shocked.
Like, for instance, with your dad or my dad, I would say, I would get one. If you get into that age where, the 50s, where, they say it's like, that age where a lot of things happen, then I would say.
But I have actually had one patient who I deal with quite frequently, and he has an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
He's got atrial fibrillation, which is an arrhythmia for anyone who doesn't know. And his Apple Watch obviously goes off quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, so it's a bit annoying for him.
And it is, but then he'll dictate his management based on that.
Right, okay.
And it's led to a lot of false positives.
Ah, right, okay.
So it does have its benefits, but like always, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt.
So I think we would love to know, if anyone has got to the end of this video, what your thoughts are. What would you rank them out 1 to 5? And then also give an explanation of them. If you've got any questions based on this video or any other videos, drop us a message. We always will get back to you. But we just want to say thank you for listening.
Yeah, if you've got any video ideas as well, put them down below. We will try and review them and see if it's something we can do.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.